Welcome to Ready Set RC, and today we got the team associated rival MT10 on the bench. And for you guys that are not familiar with this truck, this is the brushed edition. This is part of our Noob 101 series, and this is the vehicle that I chose to do that series with. What this series is taking a brushed RC, going through its paces as it's brushed, and I have several videos on the channel in a playlist. It's labeled Project Noob. I would appreciate it if you guys get a moment, go through the playlist, watch all the videos so that you guys can get a full understanding of where we are to date. But for this video, this would be what I would consider graduating to the sophomore class. And what that means is that you've finally gotten to the 200 level courses for the Project Noob series. And what are we planning on doing? We're gonna install a brushless motor and ESC system into the rival MT10. For you guys that are questioning to this point if you should be going brushless with your RC, this series can be done with any brushed RC. On-road, off-road, monster truck, stadium truck, short course truck. You could do this, you can apply this series to any of those type of applications. As long as it's brushed, that's basically what those videos are catered to. And this one's gonna be catered to anyone that's taking an RC from brushed to brushless. If you wanna know if you meet the prerequisites of taking an RC brushless, I would have thought that you have put in somewhere between 10 to 20 packs in the RC. You have a full understanding of how to operate the RC, meaning driving, charging LiPo packs, discharging your LiPo packs, going through the RC. The RC may have broken on you once or twice to this point. You're approaching the point where you're about to do a breakdown of the RC. And what that means is going through, checking your bearings, checking your diffs, going through your shocks, making sure that you have not lost any shock oil on there. Maybe adjusting, since this truck you can adjust your camber and your toe. Maybe adjusting your camber and your toe to your liking at that point, as long as you understand what that means. You may have done a tire swap to this point, and that you've gotten a full understanding of what this offering is. And that's kind of the time when you're ready to swap over to a brushless system. You've fully understood the car. You understand what the car is capable of. You've gotten the most that you can out of the RC, and that's by putting in a sufficient amount of packs in to that point. And now it's time to switch it over to brushless. What you'll find in the hobby is that a lot of people will swap the car over to brushless. They're brand new to the hobby just because they saw their favorite YouTuber doing it. And then they'll smash up a whole bunch of parts and then say that the RC is garbage because it breaks up on them. Well, you never got a chance to understand how the RC works, how the RC performs, what you're supposed to look for when you first purchase your RC. And I think that's what you'll get if you just learn to drive the truck in the form that it came in when you first bought it. Understand the truck. Don't rush it. This is not a rushing hobby. This is a hobby that people are in it for the long haul. They're in it for years. They're not in it for a couple of weeks or a couple of days. Get to know your RC before you decide to start throwing hop-ups in it, especially when you're a noob to the RC. When you're a noob to RC, it's one of those things, learn about the hobby before you decide to start hopping things up similar to your favorite YouTuber. What I have here is a Spektrum Firma ESC and motor combo. This is a 3300 kV motor, and it's paired with an 85 amp ESC. And why did I choose this? Well, when you're looking for the right brushless system, you don't want to throw something in that's going to be overpowered. And the other side goes the other way too. You don't want to throw in something that's going to be underpowered to the RC, because what you're going to have is a lot of buildup, a lot of heat, and that's because a smaller system can't handle the size and weight of the RC that you're trying to put it in. So what I tend to do when I'm looking for a brushless motor and ESC, and this is probably the easiest way for most of you noobs that are out there to trying to figure that out. If the RC that you are trying to convert brushless has a brushless model in there, and you don't want to go with the same exact electronics that come with the brushless version of it, Look for the KV and the amps of the ESC of the brushless edition and try to mirror something to that compatible for your RC. You can always go with a higher amperage on the ESC. I believe the stock version of this truck, brushless, has a 60 amp or 65 amp ESC. This one's 85 amp. Just so happened by choice that what it is. I got an extremely good deal back in February on this, and that's why I decided to go with this combo. Otherwise, I probably would have put a Hobbywing Max 10 system in this. And that's the thing you guys got to remember is that if you're going to go ahead and throw 8S in this light little truck, this is not a heavy truck. And if you're going to go ahead and throw in 6S or 8S in this, it's overkill, guys. You're wasting that amount of power into this. This truck is perfectly fine with the way it's set up on 3S, on 2S. If you gear it properly, you put the right battery packs in this, you're fine on 2S and 3S. There's no need to take this truck 6S. And that's because of the weight and the size of this truck. It's just not necessary. You're wasting the power for this truck. But that's why we went with this. We went with a compatible system to give us an adequate amount of power for this RC. So this video is not a Spektrum Firma ESC and motor review, but I do want to show you guys what comes in the box. This is what it's going to look like when you get it. Most ESCs, you'll get some kind of adhesive for the ESC. This one, they provide you with an adhesive for the power switch. And then some various materials, stickers, you'll get with this one. But as I said, this is not a review of the Spektrum Firma ESC and motor combo. It's just kind of showing you guys what you're going to get when you order this stuff. And you don't have to order a combo. You can order a separate ESC and motor, and that will work just as fine. Get the ESC with an IC3 connector. That's your receiver plug connector. Your power switch, on and off. And then your leads to the motor, right there. And then you get your 3300 kV motor. The one thing to keep in mind is that when you're selecting a motor and you start getting your pinions together, is to keep in mind the shaft size of the motor. And that's going to determine what size pinion you're going to buy. And what I mean by size pinion, I don't mean how many teeth the pinion has, but the size of the pinion in regards to it fitting onto the motor shaft. And the key thing with that is if it's not going to be, there are some that's like a 5mm, and that's going to be more for your larger can motors. And there are some that will provide you with an adapter, a sleeve to go in there to allow it to fit the smaller size shafts. But that's the one thing that you want to make sure that you're looking for, is that your pinion that you're looking for this, that you're making sure that it does have the proper size to fit the shaft of your motor. Otherwise, you'll either need to get an adapter or to get a proper pinion to fit it. What I'm going to use on this is that I went up to a 15-tooth pinion on this current brushed motor, and I'm going to use that on this. I believe I've used 15 in the past. When I did have the brushless version of the MT10, I did use a 15-tooth pinion, ran it on 2S, and I thought that was more enough power for me. Of course, that's an opinionated thing for everyone. Everyone's going to choose the correct pinion size that fits best for them, and the amount of battery power that you're going to need is going to be best for you based on your opinion. But for me, that's what I thought was best. And I'm going to try that out first. I'm going to put it up with the 15-tooth pinion that's in here and run it on 2S. And then I may do a run on 3S so you guys can see what that looks like. But it's going to be ballistic on 3S. I'm not going to record the install of the ESC and motor into the Rival MT10 because this is not a video specific to the Rival MT10. This is a video directed to anyone that's converted any brushed RC to brushless RC. And I don't want to turn this into a Rival MT10 video for you guys to see how that's done. What I may do is record the install and put that to a side and release that on a separate video at a later date. for anyone that wants to know how to install a brushless ESC motor into the rival MT10. But really this video is more so speaking about a brushless conversion for a brushed RC. Let's get the system installed and we'll be right back. Let's get this thing started. Going to take the ESC, the motor out, pull it from its receiver box, which is sitting over here. Give you guys a little peek of what that looks like. Yep, receiver box. Gonna pull this out and start to get the other stuff in. So you guys are just gonna see a removal of the ESC and motor, and let's get it going. This is a 32 pitch, 14 tooth pinion. That's another thing that you guys gotta keep conscious of, is not only the size of the shaft of the motor, but also got to remember your pitch, understanding the RC and understanding what pitch, meaning pinion's teeth. And this one is a 32 pitch. There's 48 pitch, 32 pitch, mod 1, mod 1.5. There's all different variations I could go through, but what you got to remember is the pitch of your pinion. It's got to match your spur. And with this RC, this is the pitch that it uses. It uses a 32 pitch pinion and spur gear. And here we are with the Spektrum 3300 kV motor. Shaft size is the same. We're going to go ahead and we're going to look for the flat side of it. That's my grub screw. Push that right on. And typically, I'll be honest with you, typically I don't put the pinion on before I put on the motor mount, because most cases you will not be able to do what I'm doing right now, which is slide the motor mount over the pinion. What you want to do is you want to install the motor mount first, then put the pinion on afterwards. But I knew that the pinion would slide right over this motor mount, so that's why I did that. But typically you want to do it the reverse of what I just showed you. Same thing with the grub screw for the pinion. I'm just going to back it out and add a little bit of Loctite on it again. Installed it, but okay. It's nice and secure. Let's get this back on the car. So typically when it comes to the gear mesh, I like to do the look and feel method. I've been doing it for quite some time, so normally I'll lock it in, then I'll feel it based on how it's locked in and rock it back and forth, and that'll get me a good idea of what the mesh feels like. But for you guys, I'm going to go old school. I'm going to put a slip of paper between the pinion and spur. Get that right in there. Then I'm gonna get my mesh going, and I'm going to make sure everything is seated properly in there. And then I'm going to tighten up this. With this mesh and how you set it, it has a spring tensioner screw there. So make sure that's nice and tight. Pull the paper. You hear that rock? I'm not sure if you guys are going to hear it. I'll probably try to bring it close. But that's what you want to hear when you set your mesh. That rock right there. I'll try to bring this close enough so you guys can hear it. But that's what you want to hear. That's a good mesh to me. We're gonna get the ESC in. I don't know if I'm gonna touch the mounting tapes and all that first. I usually like to make sure everything is working properly, and then I like to mount it in. Plus I want to clean this surface and make sure that's in there nice and neat. So I'm just gonna mount it for purposes of making sure that everything works. I do have a 3S pack I could test it with. Let's get that in. So it's basically your ground, your hot, and your neutral. Put that in. Most receivers, you're going to have your ground on the outside. I think there's like only one, maybe Fly Sky, that does it the reverse. But for the most part, you're always going to have your ground or your negative on the outside of the receiver. The good thing about using an ESC and motor that match up, the colors that are coming off the ESC and the motor are going to match. So it's blue to blue, yellow to yellow, and orange to orange. And that's it. So I said I'm going to make that nice and neat afterwards. All right, now it's time to calibrate the ESC. Take the controller, power that on. The throttle setting is turned all the way up to max. Controller is on. Holding the set button. Powering it on. We're hearing the beeps. Red light is flashing. I kept it in neutral, hit the set button. Now we're going to do full throttle. All the way. Hold the set button. Put it back in neutral. Now go all the way to reverse. Back to neutral. Then it comes out of calibration mode. I like to power it off. Then power it back on. All right, so I plugged in my programming card directly into the port where the fan is, power on the RC, and now we have the programming card up. Hopefully you guys are able to see. You guys were seeing that it was in forward reverse, but it's saying forward brake here. That's not exactly right. So let's reset that. I want forward reverse brake. Hit save. Drag brake is set to 10%. I actually don't want any drag brake. 0 drag brake. Hit save. Click OK. Fine with the volts. Punch level 1. Let's see what it has as options. 2. That's all, just 2. I'm going to keep it the punch is level 1 then. Brake force is 25%. Let me see what other options they have. 50. I'm going to leave it at 25. Reverse force is at 25%. What if I can lower that? No, I can't lower that. Wow. So I'm going to leave that at 25. I don't know why I keep saying data failed. Then we're going to power this off. Plug that out. Put the fan back on. There we go. What was that? Why did it do that? Let's try that again. I like what I heard.
What did you do? Nothing. Houston, we have a problem.
So that's it, guys. We got the MT10 all buttoned up with the new ESC and motor going on here. I have it calibrated. And when I was going through the settings, I had to do a lot of it off camera because I was running into some issues. And I'll tell you guys what those issues are. It didn't make any sense to show it on camera because you probably won't run into these issues that I did. So in setting up the ESC, I have a Spektrum Smart program card that I use for these Spektrum ESCs. I had to update the firmware for this smart card, and I did that off camera. What actually alerted me to updating the programming card was, for some strange reason, when I connected the card to the ESC, it put the ESC in a nickel metal hydride mode. And how did I know that? I only heard one beep when I turned on the ESC. Automatically I knew that it was going into a nickel metal hydride mode. Just from experience with the Hobby Wing type ESCs, that I knew that was what was going on. Downloaded the updated firmware to this. After that, everything went well. Was able to switch this back to LiPo mode and change the settings the way that I like it on here. Outside of that one issue with the firmware update to the programming card, everything else went well with this. Next up, we're going to get this thing out. We're going to see how the servo performs with this current setup, see if there's any any slowness with the servo, and maybe that'll be the next thing that we update on this truck. But for right now, we're gonna run it as is. We're gonna see how that ESC performs on 2S first. I may run it on 3S, typically with this 14-tooth pinion. I remember that, I'm trying to remember the pinion size that I ran on the brushless version, but I do remember going up on the pinion and running it on 2S, and it was a sweet spot for me. So I'm gonna see if running it with the 14-tooth pinion and running it on 2S, how that performs. And if I need to, I'll go up on my up to 3S and maybe lower the pinion down back again. But next up, you guys will see a running video of the rival MT10, brushless now. Hopefully you guys have been enjoying the noob series. And for those of you that have not seen the prior videos to this, please go back and watch the playlist. It's a complete playlist dedicated to new people into the RC, starting off with a brushed RC and then kind of taking it to this level. What I'm really trying to show everybody by these videos is that you don't normally need to go immediately to brushless after you bought your first RC. There's no need to convert it over to brushless. You should get to learn the RC before you decide to start doing a whole bunch of hundreds of dollars in upgrades. I think when you do it in that fashion, you kind of get a disdain, or you start to dislike the hobby. And when you do it in the way that I'm showing it to you in this series, you really get to enjoy the truck, enjoy the RC if it's a car, and learn more about the hobby rather than just converting something to get the maximum speed out of it, smash it, break it, and then say that the RC is garbage. But we're gonna leave it here, guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram and TikTok for the latest updates to the channel. This is Ready Set RC, signing out. Thanks again, guys.